Okay, we're going to take a look at the answers to the Chapter 7 WP2 assignment. And I want to get the pointer ready to go here. I'm also at the end going to show the answers to 4A and 4B on the assignment, which is the linear inequality problems. So the first problem we're going to take a look at is number 35 on page 448, the rectangle problem. We are given the perimeter of 14 feet. And we want to first establish or identify the variables. In this case, of course, W would be the width and L would be the length, because those we do not know. In fact, we're supposed to find those. So as we move on, then we want to now establish two equations. And the first thing that's told to us is that twice its length is equal to 1 less than 4 times its width. So this is what we're given right now. So we can write an equation with that. So twice its length is, of course, going to be 2 times L is equal to equal sign. So 2 times the length equals to 1 less than 4 times its width. Now, 1 less is, using the less than is sometimes confuses people. So if we were to say 1 less than 8, most people would say that 1 less than 8 is equal to 7. But how do you get 7? Is it 1 minus 8, which is the order of the numbers, or is it 8 minus 1? And so, of course, it's 8 minus 1. So, in a sense, you have to reverse the numbers. So, 1 less than, the 1 has to go after the subtraction sign. And so, it will be 4 times the width, which is 4W, minus 1. So here's our first equation that we've established. The other thing is that we are given, since it's a perimeter, we know that the perimeter is given to us by a formula, which is 2L plus 2W equals the perimeter. So right there we're given almost the entire second equation, and we know the perimeter is 14, so we just fill that in. So 2L plus 2W is 14. So there are our two equations, and now you can solve it by graphing, substitution, or elimination, and at this point it's your choice. Okay, now we're going to go on to the next problem. The next problem is that we're given on page 449, number 40, we are given 2 cars that go in and get their oil changed, and the charge is the fee plus the dollars per quart times the number of quarts. The first car uses 5 quarts of oil and it costs $22.45. The other one uses 7 quarts and costs $25.45. So we want to find the fee and the cost per quart. We want to identify the variables first. And so the I believe they give it to you, so we know just by what it says in the word problem that the fee is going to be the X and the cost per quart is going to be Y. So they've actually identified the variables for us. Now we want to move into getting the two equations. And since we have 2 cars, probably can get 1 equation for each car. And so as we look at the relationships, and that's the key to finding equations, is establishing the relationship or knowing what the relationship is between the things in the word problem. And so we see the relationship here is that the cost is figured out by finding the fee and then adding the cost per quarts times the number of quarts. And the other way you could say is the fee plus the cost per quart times the number of quarts equals the cost. Either way that you'd like to do that. And so as we do that, we look at the first car. The first car uses 5 quarts of oil and costs $22.45. And so the X is the fee. So here's the fee that we're talking about. We're going to add the dollars per quart, which that we don't know, and so that's the Y. And we're going to multiply that times the number of quarts used, which is the 5. So we've covered this, and that's going to equal the cost, which we are given as being $22.45. There's our first equation. The second equation is going to be the second car. And so we can do the same kind of thing. And so the only thing that really changes is the number of quarts used and the cost. So those are the only things that are a little bit different here than the first one. So again, now at this point you can solve by the calculator, or you can use substitution or elimination. And when you do that, your answer should be, the fee would be $14.95, and the dollars per quart would be $1.50. Okay, so let's look at the next problem. You have a book sale, and the hardcover books cost $4 each. The paperbacks are $2 each, and a person spends $26 for 8 books. So how many hardcover books were purchased? Okay, so we want to establish and identify the variables, and so we don't know how many hardcover books or paperbacks were purchased. So we're going to use those as our X and Y. Okay, because those are things that are important to the problem, but we don't know what they are. Next, we want to get the two equations. And so anytime that you see a number that represents a total, then most of the time there's going to be two things that are added, two or more things that are added together to get that total. So if you look at the fact that there were 8 books sold, well, 8 books is a result of so many hardcover books plus so many paperback books. And so the relationship here is that if we add the number of each type of book that's purchased, then that's going to give us a total number of books. And since the number of books, hardcovers that were purchased is X, and the number of paperbacks purchased is Y, we add those two together, and that gives us 8. So we know then that there's either 1 hardcover and 7 paperbacks, or 2 hardcovers and 6 paperbacks, etc., etc., because that's the relationship between the number of books purchased and the total number of books. The next thing is you have a total spent of $26. Well, so much was spent on the hardcover books and so much was spent on the paperback books. So the hardcover books, there were so many of them, and there were $4 for each one, so it's $4 times however many were purchased. Well, again, we don't know how much were purchased, so we are going to multiply that by the X, and then the 2 going to be multiplied by the Y, because Y represents the number of paperbacks purchased, and they're $2 each. You add those two together, and you get $26. Now you have your two equations with two unknowns, and then you can solve it by graphing calculator, substitution, or elimination. And the answer is in the back of the book, so I'm not going to give the answer on this. But these are the identifying the variables and the two equations that you need to have. Okay, we're going to move on to the next problem. And this problem is actually, I'm not going to go over this one because this is like the previous one. And so I'm just going to show the identifying the variables. X is the student ticket sold, Y is the adult ticket sold, and then here are your two equations that are actually very similar to what was done in the previous problem. So let's see, the answer would be 325 student tickets and 404 adult tickets. Okay, so the next thing is 4A. So check this out. You can pause the video if you need to look at it longer, but this is for the first system of linear inequalities. And then the next one, 4B. And remember, if you have any questions about these, if you didn't get these right and you're not sure why, then be sure to come in and get help or ask somebody to find out what the area of concept that you are missing. All right, that's it.